welcome back to the GT podcast. I'm your host, John Algandi. And before starting this video, please understand that the use of PEDs is not recommended at all, not without getting your routine blood work done and understanding your health markers and if you have a condition or not. Nothing discredits the hard work in the gym, which is years of training with intensity, doing this with dedication, and doing this for a long duration of time. That is your trifecta for success. With that being said, this next guest is someone you may recognize very well in our industry. She started competing in 2015 and started out as a digital content creator. A graduate of Texas A&M University, in 2021, she turned pro at the Junior USAs, winning the overall title there. 3 years ago, when she started talking about steroid use for the female side of bodybuilding, she got a lot of backlash from it and seen as putting female bodybuilding in the dark. I saw it as a source of light because it was not really talked about on the female side versus the male side of things, and nobody in the industry was doing it but her. And she's an educator, a coach, and an athlete. And honestly, if she had an audiobook, I would listen to it. And she does leave a little hint at the end that she is starting an audiobook. With that being said, my next guest is someone who I really have admiration for and someone who I commend for everything that they have done and contributed to our industry. Here's my guest, Cory Hageman.
Okay.
I'm happy to have you on, by the way.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be fun. Thank you for being flexible with the time. Yeah, where are you based out of?
I'm based off of the East Coast. I live in Maryland.
Nice. Okay, cool. I used to live in McLean for a couple of years. But
Oh,
yeah, I would venture up to Maryland for the food. I really enjoyed it.
I never knew that at all.
Yeah. Um,
So,
mhm.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. Gosh, I'm thinking back. I was there maybe 2017, 2018, which feels like a lifetime ago.
Wow. So I wanted to get you on because I've learned a lot from you and I appreciate everything that you've done in our industry. And, I think that you're one of the most prominent figures, I would say, in the fitness industry and also on the female side of things.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you for having me on. And thank you for doing the coverage that you do. That is something that within our space, like has taken off, like having someone like dedicated to doing good coverage and keeping up to date with everything. So I know fans are very appreciative, especially those who are learning more about the sport. So I know it's a lot of work too. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. But I brought you on because I kind of want to know more about you, and I made sure that, listen, before I got in here, I hope I don't make you feel uncomfortable. If you tell me to stop, just let me know, because I actually kind of did my research and I made sure that I wouldn't ask the same question twice and got something totally different. And I wanted to kind of know about you, how you got started, your background, and how you got to where you are today. So my first question to ask you, and I did write this down, was your education and background. You're originally from Texas, now residing in California.
Yeah. I've been here since 2018. I'm in North Cal, so just outside of San Jose, pretty much. But yeah, went to Texas A&M, studied business, got into social media marketing. That's actually what took me out to Virginia. I lived in McLean for a little bit, worked for Legion Athletics, which I am not
Oh,
sponsored with
that's
them
why.
now, but that's the thing. Like, I don't want to code or anything like that, but I still recommend their products heavily just because I know how they're made. I know they're sourced and I know they put a lot of money into it. So, um, from there, I went into videography, cinematography, kind of did that freelance for a little bit. Um, and when I moved out to California, I was doing a lot of freelance jobs, like kind of in the fitness space, but also in like professional sports. I ended up working for a fitness app during COVID. Like that was when they were trying to launch. And like everything kind of happened quickly. They went under. So, like my job became very obsolete. And also, I was kind of like done with videography. It's not what I wanted to do full time. And like working in that position, I'm like, okay, realistically, there's not a lot more I can do that would really make me feel satisfied. So, pivoted hard, went back to school, went to nursing school. And at the time, I was like, okay, like everything shut down. I guess I'll get back into competing. I had competed at that point 4 times, but honestly, I was very career focused for that gap in between. Went to nursing school, started competing at the national level, turned pro. And then I was like, okay, I've got a little bit of time before clinicals start. I'd like to get back on the pro stage and like really see like how I fare before that. Cause realistically, it's like you only get a few days off each term and it's such a big financial investment. I was like, I don't want to come like, I don't know. I don't want to be like split in two different segments and not really do well in either. So I finished nursing school in March last year. Um, it didn't start working, didn't take my boards. And I was just like, honestly, I'm doing really well on the business side of things. I have a passion for what I'm doing here. I'd rather scale this. Is that a pretty I try to keep that concise. Is that a good
Yeah.
summary of like a
No,
10
that's
year?
that's really good. I
Okay.
kind of knew some things about that. So, um, what got you into competing? Did you do it for fun because you were an athlete, or you just love to train and this was just something that you found as a hobby?
Yeah. I mean, competitions like back then in 2014, the bikini look was something I admired, and it was completely different than what I had been exposed to as far as like females to look up to, like in more of like the public light. Growing up, my generation, it was like you could be really skinny and like you could excel in like more the modeling sense, but there weren't many females who were adding muscle and still being promoted. And even in like Sports Illustrated, it wasn't like that kind of look.
Yeah.
So I was really inspired by seeing like a different kind of body image that was being promoted. And honestly, I was like, wow, like that's really cool. These girls are athletic, they lift weights, they're curvy, but in a very athletic sense, which I thought was really cool. I really took to the nutrition and the training side of things, like just understanding what I was doing. And I found, honestly, like a lot of a lot of agency in teaching myself more about like competition prep. So I prepped myself for my first two shows, I guess my first four shows, and I just kind of fell in love with that process. It gave me a lot of control, and it was rewarding because, I mean, objectively, I did pretty well. And then when I got back into it, it was like, okay, the look is completely different now, but I also am a little bit older. I have a little bit more time to really see, like, um, do I have what it takes to, like compete at this level? And my first national show, I was 1 point away from a pro card. So I was like, okay, like maybe there is some efficacy here. And yeah, then my national shows, they went incredibly well after that. Won the overall at Junior USA's in 2021. I got second at my pro debut at Ashley K, and it was really close. So I mean, I was like, shit, like this is fun. The actual competition side and seeing like what really, I mean, like what you need to do specific to your body and your physique to continue to progress.
Yeah. So actually, we'll talk about that. I mean, the look is totally different from 2014. That's kind of like fit model era. I remember that picture. I did say in your DMs, "Hey, look, it's fit model, Cory." And if you don't
Yeah.
mind, can I show you what you looked like in 2015?
Oh God, yeah, but that's so embarrassing. Go
It's
ahead. You're fine.
okay. This is 2000. This is 2015.
Yep. Yeah.
You actually
Uh,
did look really. You don't look that bad at all.
I was just I was just bones. I was just bones and psoas. Like, I mean, there was very little muscle, but I'll tell you, at this show, I got first in teen. I did pretty well in the overall, I think, or in the open. I think I got second or third. But they told me they were like, you need to like chill on the quads. And then my national show after, or the national qualifier after that, it was kind of the same thing. They're like, yeah, like just be careful with the legs. Like you need more glutes, keep working on the shape. But it was like really interesting because, yeah, at that time, like, I was like, I'm 19 years old. Like, what do you mean? Like, I need to tone it down. I have, looking back, I'm like, I have very little muscle.
Yeah. So you know how I started knowing about you because Skylar Lanier. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She won the overall at Junior USA's in 2018, and she said, "Hey, John, you may find someone very special that comes out of that." And then I don't remember who won 19 and 20, but then you won 2021. So if I'm going off based on your history, so at your first nationals, which was in 2020, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I did
You
nationals, and then I did USA's. So maybe like how long was that? Like 12 weeks later.
Yeah,
And then
USA's was first. Yeah.
yeah. Well, so that year with COVID, USA's was end of the year. It was like middle of
Oh.
December. I did nationals. I'm forgetting the date on that. Maybe they were a little bit closer. but did well at nationals, did okay at USA's. I think I got fifth. But I mean, like I was kind of tapped out. I was like, this was a really long season. Um, and then I started working with Shane after that, maybe like a few weeks after that. And I was like, hey, I want to do another national show. And he suggested Junior USA's. He's like, it's a quick turnaround, but honestly, I think you can do it. I think you're really close. So we did that one in May in 21.
Yeah, I remember that. So you go into your 2021 season, you get second to Ashley K by 1 point decision. How was that feeling for you? You're like, wait, I can actually do well. Were you thinking that after that point you can go and say, wait, I can qualify for the Olympia? I'm right there to win it, and you just kept going?
Honestly, that was the headspace. I was very surprised, and not in the essence of like, um, I guess how do I explain this? Going into it, I would have been thrilled with like top 7, like top 10, even like even second call outs. I would have been like, that's good. It's your first pro show. Um, but because it was so close and because like it was pretty split judging, like I talked to all the judges afterwards, and I mean, looking back, like there were a lot of errors I was making, and like there was a lot of imbalances, but again, like you judge who shows up. So I mean, like that's where it landed that day. I actually was really excited for the next 2 shows I had after that, but I ended up getting really injured like the week after. I tore my serratus. So essentially, it's that muscle for listeners. It's the muscle that runs kind of like south of your armpit along the rib. So, like any kind of ventilation, exhaling, inhaling, was excruciating pain. Like, I mean, I was like sleeping with like ice packs like on for a couple of days. And I mean, like at that point, I was like with posing, like any kind of twisting, vacuuming, sucking in, it was just excruciating. Of course, like many new pros, I was like, oh, but I already committed. I already signed the contract. I already booked my flights. Like I have to do these shows. So I went and competed 4 weeks later at
Republic of Texas,
Republic of Texas, with a Vegas one right before that, not Night of Champions,
Patriots Challenge.
Patriot Challenge,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, like, I remember that show, both showings. I really was not a fan of my look. Like, I wasn't at my best. It was really hard. Like it was just hard mentally to go in being like, I can't like suck my stomach in, and I'm still in pain anytime I pose. And I remember afterwards, Sandy, like, gosh, and at Patriots, like I think majority of us turned green too with Tan Masters. So we are all pissed. Like Ashley was like green, green, and like everyone was like, we got to get retanned. They refused to give me my like second or third coat. They were like, you're already too dark. Like it's borderline okay, like which understandable. They probably was the best idea. But yeah, those shows sucked. Like competing that way, like I definitely would not recommend. But then I was done with the season, so I was like, okay, now I can kind of nurse this injury, figure out what I need to do to get back into it.
So you went high very well in your first year, in your first rookie season, and then you started, I don't want to say like this in a bad way, like you kind of started to like drop placings a bit. And so
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you came into 2022, you did 2 shows that year. You did the Mile High and you did the did you do the same ones? What was it again?
I did Night of Champions first, and then I did the Mile High like 4 weeks after. But yeah, no, objectively that is what it is. Like I did well my rookie season. I didn't get second at Patriots Challenge or Republic of Texas. I think fifth and then seventh. But it was cool because even hearing feedback from other coaches and judges, they're like, "Hey, you just look tired. Like you just like you need to grow into this, and like that's just the name of the game." So I mean, like looking back, I'm like, okay, that's really good feedback. I think even Tyler at Republic of Texas was like, just take some time off, like recover, rebuild, like heal and stuff. But yeah, no, 22, I started working with John Jewett in 21 coming out of that season. And that was really when I was like, okay, like I'm not natural. Like I already was using enhancements, which we're welcome to go into as much of that as you want or don't want to. But
Yeah.
I was really curious with him. I'm like, okay, I plan to continue using enhancements, but I don't have a good knowledge base. So like I really want to get a sense of like how to go about this. generally not recklessly. And well, like one of the first things he saw was like hormonally, I was using DHEA like at a really high dose. He's like, well, this isn't the best option, da da da. And we kind of went back with, back and forth with like why TRT might be a good option. But then we also started looking just generally what I needed as an athlete. I needed more muscle to be more competitive because a lot of what happened in 2021, I was compensating very heavily with conditioning and posing. So I spent some time off stage. I knew I was going to start clinicals with nursing school. So I was like, okay, I want to get back on stage in 22, even if I'm not as muscled as I need to be. But I really want to prep myself. And at that point, I mean, like Shane would say this too. It's like he wasn't doing my training, he wasn't doing my diet. Like he was like giving me macros and like adjusting things. And obviously, yes, like giving feedback, but like honest, very hands off. So I mean, like working with John, I'm like, it kind of seems like I'm in a position where maybe I can give myself more attention to detail than other coaches might give me at this point, and I enjoy that. So I kind of want to do that. And he supported me. He's like, I can be your second eye if that appeals to you. He actually hired me then, like as the female J3U coach. So I started working with him, and he kind of kept an eye on my prep in 22.
Yeah. When I started in this industry, like I've always said, I wasn't like John Jewett. I wasn't like you, who is very well versed in this, or Derek More Place More Dates. Like I had a base of understanding, but a lot of the things that I learned about was like looking up is like, okay, what is D-ball? What is test? What is any of these things? And I was always curious on the female side, like, it seems around 2016 time, it was very prevalent because what was the most common thing I heard? The most common thing I kept hearing is her face, their muscle, her, like that was the most common thing. And it didn't bother me at first, but then when I started seeing like alterations to someone's appearance, it was kind of like, what's going on? Like, this is Bikini. This is like the more muscular divisions. Like, you would not expect this. And I remembered one time I got a guest pass in the gym and I knew this. I'm not gonna say the Bikini Pro's name, but her voice was very low. And I was like, huh? Like, I would not expect her to like sound like that at all. So I started looking you up, and I think, it's hard, especially in this industry where it's very male dominant. That's like for a bikini, for like, especially on the females competitors, they're, I don't want to sound so wrong saying this, Cory, but they're kind of treated like second class, or kind of like they're, oh, bikini is not really a bodybuilding division. It's like very taboo. So when like anybody in the female side, does PEDs, it's kind of like it's nonchalant, or it's kind of like taboo. But I was like, this is someone's health, like long term, and I don't want someone to get worse, because people wait to be absolutely worse before they decide to do something about it, and sometimes it's too little, too late. So I wanted to know something from you. What made you start doing these videos? Was it because you had a bad experience? Have you experienced any side effects from PEDs or from bad coaching in the past, that you were like, hey, you started putting these out and you just wanted to give people awareness? Because I think that's what you're really great at doing, giving that awareness to the female side of things.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I would say for my PED use, like I'm very open that like I've been on TRT for 3 years. I haven't done a cycle of like an ancillary anabolic in the off season. I mean, like soon we're right there, especially with how dense these girls are getting. But I've used Anavar in season. Like I've used it to like kind of like puff up that final look, make it look a little denser. Um, Virilization, no, but a lot of mismanagement. And that's where like I was fortunate, like even in 2015, like I dated a bodybuilder. I was around a lot of bodybuilders, and like everyone told me they're like, yes, girls are using stuff even in bikini. You don't have to. Like you don't have to. You're so young. Like, I mean, like if you want to do this sport for a long time, like really try to get what you can out of it. So I mean, like I'm very fortunate. Like I was dealt a hand that was completely out of my control, but like I had people around me that very much were like instilling that like this isn't a decision to make lightly. And I would say in 2020, I was geared up, metaphorically, but like I was very much like, I plan to use PEDs. I want to do so in a way that makes a little more sense. And I was putting at the time in 2020, before I started working with John, I was putting a lot of faith into people who I just don't think had my best interest in mind, and also didn't have the knowledge base. So, I mean, like, realistically, like, there was mismanagement. Did it actually have like an irreversible impact or even a negative impact? I think I got injured because I was way too fucking lean. I was on Nolvadex, and like I was just doing so much activity. And it's like we literally just got that feedback from like all the judges are like, you're way too lean, like just unreasonably lean. Please don't come like this again. Come in a little bit fuller. Yet I was still at such low calories and doing a lot of cardio. So it's like I consider that more mismanagement or like missteps in the coaching process rather. But I knew it was an issue. Like even outside of my use, I figured I got lucky with the people I was involved with and people that like I was taking advice from. But it was honestly John who, for like a year, like 22 all the way to 23, he was like really pushing me. He's like, you should make PED videos. You should share what you're learning through J3U. And realistically, he's like, this is just becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And you're hearing that people are getting hurt. So, like, if not you, then who? And like you're a pro, like that is going to give you some credibility to this. You're also not natural, so that's going to also give you some credibility to this. You haven't viralized, so people like it's a lot easier to listen to someone about viralization when they haven't viralized versus when things have changed, and that's just the reality. So gosh, I remember the first video I put out, it was like Anavar versus Clen, just got ripped apart. Just people were so triggered. And exactly to your point, it's like, yo, like who is this chick talking about this? And like the audacity to come out and say that like they're even like comparable. And it was like, okay, over your head entirely. But I mean, like that's kind of the territory of like being a bikini pro and like talking about drugs. To your point, like, yeah, there's still a big portion of bodybuilders like collectively that just don't think that it's necessary. And like, regardless, it's like, well, there's a lot of use. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job. Otherwise, I wouldn't just have this endless list of people coming to me who are like, hey, I don't know if this is correct. I would really like some help here. And frankly, like I've already like screwed it up in the past. I don't want to do that again. So I guess really final answer is like, it's just to bring awareness, because I mean, like I knew it was a problem. It wasn't until I started posting about it that I was able to see like, wow, like there's just so few people doing things in a way that doesn't pose a pretty serious risk.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I hope this is not strange, but I literally typed Cory Hageman. It's like Cory Hageman and Anavar. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
I'm
And I'm like, you got
typecast.
backlash, but it's like, hey, here's someone who's putting it out here. Like, hey, ladies, you know, one thing I take away from you is that less is more. And like, if you're going to get into this, at least know what you're getting into. And, you know, one thing I remembered Amanda Kahatsu saying was, if you're, I did make a comment on this, and I did make a comment on one of your posts, was like, if you don't compete at all, you shouldn't be on PEDs at all. Like, you shouldn't be taking it recreationally. Like, if you're trying to portray an image, like I get it and stuff, but like over time it gets worse. There's a time where you have to like cycle off things. So I mean, I've watched videos of when competitors retired and stuff. I mean, I don't watch Greg Doucette's video, but I did listen to him on Cutlercast, and I will say this: that was the most calm I've ever seen him like talk. And he was talking about this competitor last year, Anthony Mantello, who he's been on gear on since 2020, since he was like 17 years old, and then just this year he decided to retire and I just saw him getting worse. He goes, I need to take care of my health, and I don't want to wait to get worse. And then I'm just seeing how all the divisions have evolved, and there was some post about a former bikini Olympian saying bikini looks like figure now. Like, I understand the hard work these girls are doing, but at what cost? So what do you think with bikini now, and how do you think other divisions isn't another division's fault, or is it just like, you know, chicken and the egg kind of situation?
I think that I think that there is, I don't even want to say mismanagement, but in the
Yeah.
feedback that top pros are getting, um, it's not as clear and not as accurate as it should be. So people are taking, let's say, feedback to come in harder on the tie-ins or drier, or I don't know, just like they're given a piece of feedback. And this isn't blaming the judges. It's just like the nature of, I don't know, my perspective on what's happening. They're given this feedback and maybe they apply it. Maybe they do come in harder, but then the next time that they get on stage, they don't place as well. So maybe it's the athlete, maybe it's the coach, but then they like take that as like, okay, well, I need to do something. And the girls I'm competing against somehow are nailing this like super dense, but also like very crispy look. And sure, like there's methodology to peaking, but realistically, there's a level of density now that I mean I'm intimidated by it. Like I'm like, oh, I'd love to compete this year, but I'm probably gonna need more muscle just because like realistically, I'm like, these girls are getting so big. I think that right now, I mean, there's a lot of coaches who are on the brink of like turning people into top Olympians or very close, or just trying to continue to escalate that. Um, I see all the top coaches cycles. I know like what they're doing and it's insane. Like, I mean, that's the thing. People want to like, I don't know, sidestep that and be like, oh no, but my coach, I hear most of them. Um, and yeah, I think it's just coming down to like doing whatever it takes to win. And if that's a little bit longer of an anavar cycle or increasing a dose, going from 10 to 15 milligrams, or in some cases, layering compounds on compounds, it's like, yeah, the level of like whatever it takes has now unfortunately become using pretty high doses, what I consider high, what some would be like, what that's not high. It's like, yeah, but keep in mind, like a few years ago, it was like a big deal to use 10 milligrams of Anavar. That was like, ooh, like you're really pushing the envelope. Now we have people using 80 milligrams of Primo in addition to 10 milligrams of Anavar, and they're just using it their entire prep, like let alone even in the off season. So that's, I think, the unfortunate part about competition, and individuals who are putting a lot of faith into what their judges are, not the judges, what the coaches are saying. But I mean, like it's widespread. Like it's just very rare for me to hear someone cycle from another team, past experiences, even amateur competitor, largely amateur competitors, that I'm not like, oh my gosh, like that doesn't make sense. Because even with a client who is risk, like it's accepting of risk, that still would be so far down the line with something I would recommend or feel comfortable putting them on. Does that answer your question? I feel like that was super long-winded.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, I don't want to say it in the wrong way, but do you think bikinis kind of push that envelope, or is this kind of like it's just more competitive than ever? That's why it's come to this. Because I don't think unlike other muscular divisions where a lot of PEDs have taken over those divisions, like your wellness, figure, physique. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are women that have crazy genetics. I mean, I see it up close. I'm like, holy shit, this is insane. Look at that. Wow. I mean, I appreciate it, but then you kind of look at the side effects, but some people just, there's a difference of being a hyper responder and hyper tolerator. So when I've had I've had someone come to me and I saw with their cycles and I'm like, yeah, you got to stop. Like, get off everything. Just stop right now. You go any further, this is going to get much worse. And sometimes I don't know what to do about it. And all I can say is first, get blood work done. I'm not going to work with you until I see that everything's leveled up. Because God, some of the girls, I'm shocked that they're on like a gram of test or they're on diazide for cutting. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, and with your own clients, and I'm going to make this like very like specific. When I say like, how aggressive do you go? Like, how aggressive, like, what's like too much for someone? What, like, is there a certain dosage? Is there a certain PD? Like, when, like, how, like, and some of them say, I don't care. I just want to win. I don't care. I want to be a pro. I want to be an Olympian. I'm just like, there's some point where I just constantly monitor and I'm just telling them like, very less is more. I always relate to what you say, very less is more. So have you ever had to ask someone or any client that you've had as, how aggressive do you want to go with this? Or what's your limit?
um, no, I mean, though, I guess I shouldn't be that quick to answer. I have very strong boundaries around what I'll do. And yeah, like specifically dosing. Like, I'm not going to put a bikini competitor on 20 milligrams of Anavar. Even 15, I'm going to be like, why are we doing this? Like,
Yeah.
prove to me that 10 didn't work. And if we're using this in like a prep setting, I'm like, fuck out of here. Like, you can get by on 5. Okay. We're using this to make you look fuller. Like, you don't need 15. And that, like, I feel very convicted in like my understanding, honestly, around these drugs. So it's like we draw it back to what do these things do? And are we using it for that reason? If we're using it for anti catabolic reasons, so in a contest prep, we need to go lowest dose possible. And if that person, if like myself, if you're very high above your stage weight, or if like you've got a pretty good trek ahead of you, it's like, okay, well, then we need to plan for that. We need to probably include diet breaks and do things outside of PEDs to set you up so you don't need them in their entirety. Like, I mean, like I have a client that like she's a little behind, and like, we had a conversation around moving up from 40 to 60, and that's something I told her. I'm like, hey, I don't feel good on 40. Like right now I'm using Clen, and like going from 20 to 40, it's just not something I want to have day to day. 40 hasn't been an issue for her. She feels okay with it. I feel comfortable with like having her escalate up to 60, but at the same time, I'm like, you don't have to do this. If it starts to feel shitty, if it starts to like mess with you and like you're having trouble with recovery and with sleep, then like let me know immediately and then we'll back that down. T4, T3. There's a certain point, and like it's a very narrow index there too. It's like if you're talking about T4 going over 100, T3 going over 25, the girls who are going over that, like you're actually putting yourself at risk for muscle loss. So it's like in that case, specific to that medication, it's like that's not actually going to be better to continue to escalate up. Like you can have that in place, and for some, like they might be doing such a poor job or be in such a deficit that even 100 and then 25, so 100 T4, 25 T3, that might actually put them at risk for muscle loss. So on the non-androgenics, like yeah, like I have like pretty firm lines in the sand. Same thing with TRT. In terms of like compounds that I just don't touch, like I really don't go past Anavar, Masteron, Primo. Obviously TRT, like I think that's where we should start, especially if we have an active pro or someone who's like has a lot on the line. They're going to be competing. They're going to be in and out of the like, I guess like in and out of a prep season very frequently. Very few people are going to have adequate test levels. So even if it's not TRT specifically, still supporting them somehow hormonally, so potentially with something like DHEA, I think that needs to come first. And then if we're looking at something like an anabolic, like Primo, Masteron, it just comes down to accuracy, which like even then, I'm not really going to move outside of those. So like ones that are just like off the table for me for Bikini and for all my athletes, really my female athletes, I'm not touching Winstrol. Like I just there's been nothing good that I've heard come from that. The same thing with like even MPP, like Equipoise, like Boldenone. Like we're looking at all these other drugs, and I just kind of revert back to I'm like, why would we use these when the anabolic to androgenic ratio could potentially be higher? Anecdotally, I've heard a lot of people have experienced that kind of virilization, or just frankly, they are more systemically toxic. So that's generally like I would say like more of an overview on the framework. But yeah, like I have clients that like their TRT toast, they want to stay in the 400 to 500 nanogram deciliter range. And I'm like, cool, I don't want to coach you that bad. Like it's not that important to me to be your coach. This is super reckless. Respectfully, like you don't have to look that far to find a coach who's gonna just like give you a green light here. And you know what? No, that is like to answer the original question. Yeah, like I have a client who like literally I've told her at the end of this contract, we're not going to work together because we're not aligned with PEDs. You want to use them prematurely. I don't support it. So like you literally could just go, I don't know, close your eyes and type in IFBB Bikini Pro as a hashtag. You're going to find a coach that will put you on drugs before you're ready. It's just kind of the state that we're in. But I think that just comes down to like I'm very like I have very strict boundaries around like what I'm willing to do because I like coaching and I like honestly I like being able to help people excel, but like at the same time like they might tell me they're okay with it, and then a few years from now they could completely change their mind and they could mature, which I mean hopefully they do, and come to the realization that like, oh, you know what, I actually wish Cory would have been more conservative, or she wouldn't have pushed the envelope. And at the end of the day I'm like, okay, like you're doing this because I'm not enabling it, but I'm supervising, like I'm giving you some kind of encouragement. So in that case, like I'm kind of responsible for how you feel about it now, but also down the road.
Yeah. And, this is one thing I'd have to say, it's called bodybuilding, not body built. Like, I feel like people have to build a physique for many years before they are, national level. Like when you're at the national level, that's like almost like pro level right there. Um, but I feel like you build it for a couple of years and see how it goes. I mean, for you, I think you have great genetics, Cory. I'm going to tell you, I mean, getting top placings at your first national shows, there are people who go to nationals for at least more than 5 years and they don't get a top five placing until like later. And I feel like until you're like at a certain like age where you're in that stride, like, going into your like late 20s, early 30s, I feel like that's where people are at their best. And, if you've done this for a long time, that's the right time. But in your opinion, when do you think is there an ideal age for somebody? Because what we see now, it's like these influencers, these TikTok people who are bodybuilders, they're like, they go into a show, they win true novice, win the overall. 2 months later, they got their pro card. It's kind of like they want now there's this, like, everybody wants this instant gratification. They want to win right away, they want to be a pro right away, they want to be an Olympian right away. When do you feel like it's like a better time? In my opinion, I think I want to see maturity out of someone. I want to see if they can go through a program, if they can stick to a diet, if they can be committed before deciding to get on anything. And if they're right there, like I remember you said this one time, and that's just something I would always say. If you're like right there to be at a pro card, if you're right there to win a pro show, yes, now we're going to go to that level. Where do you start about it? Where do you line in that?
Yeah, no. So I've had clients that I I know will be successful pros. They will be better pros than I am. And for them, I'm a little more supportive of them using PEDs on the pursuit of that pro card. In still within the context of like what I feel like considers their longevity in the sport and like those other cycles they might need. So it's like, yes, there's an age component to this, but for me, it's gonna largely be tied to work ethic, potential, really their expectations. I've had really bratty competitors I've worked with, which like it's a big reason that like with competitors, I'm very selective about who I take on, because I like what I do and I want to keep liking it. So like people who get into the sport, kind of to your point, is like who feel very entitled to, I've been doing this long enough, I deserve a pro card. It's like it's a competition. Like, I mean, we have to preserve the competition itself. And like, I mean, it doesn't mean it's always going to be fair. And a lot of times it's not going to be. But at the same time, like there's so much you can get out of the sport, that has very little to do with placing. I mean, like I'm very competitive and like objectively, I've seen a lot of success in terms of placing, but I've gained so much more out of these preps where I've uncovered new levels to myself and what I can do and what I'm willing to do versus what I thought, was like my ceiling. And I think when it comes to PEDs, family planning is also another consideration. So like within the two camps for listeners, because I know we're kind of like moving really fast because we're on the same wavelength about this, but like when we're talking about non-androgenic PEDs, I have a little more leeway there. Like if this is not even a competitor, like I can make an argument for why this person, like they could reasonably use some non-androgenic PEDs. So things that don't pose that risk of virilization. When we're talking about anabolics, I'm much more conservative because realistically, people are doing not a lot to get that muscle return, yet they want to add the PED in. They want to see those results overnight because if anyone has used Anavar, like your weight will go up a few pounds overnight. You will look pretty much night and day different, and it's really cool. But that will also happen on the way out as soon as you remove it. Same thing will happen. And if you didn't build any muscle, you're going to look pretty much as you did before the cycle. And this is something I've seen happen time and time again. So with clients that come to me, let's say who are already on PEDs and they're kind of in that weird, I don't know, purgatory of like they shouldn't really be using them, but they were already put on them. One of the first things I do is say like, hey, let's remove this. Let's just get a baseline of how you're responding to everything that you think is optimized. Typically through that, we find that like it's not. There are things that need a lot of work. Their execution needs a lot of work. They might not even have what it takes to like really handle the level of adherence that I would like for them to have. I think there are instances where it doesn't have to be as like earned, and like it can be a little more I guess it can be premature, but it kind of comes down to the individual's risk acceptance. So some people who are very open to the idea of things changing, I mean, they might not care as much. And I've had discourse with clients where very much they're like, hey, respectfully, I know you want to do it your way. I'm going to do this, and like I want your help. Is there some wiggle room? And like I've come to like a middle ground with certain clients on that, because I'm like, okay, if you're going to do this, here's what I need from you. Even though I think it's premature, I still think like you should set this standard for yourself if you're going to have this compound in place.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good take on it. So you actually have a great eye for that, and especially with your clients, and you're always telling them what's best and all. But with Bikini since 2019, after that year when Issa won, it started becoming more about having tie-ins. That has been the biggest thing for the past now 6 years in Bikini, where it's like just trying to get into condition, getting the tie-ins, not coming too hard. Um, for you, what was something difficult that you've had? Was getting into condition? Was it tie-ins? Was that something you had to go and experience?
Yeah, yeah. Getting into condition was always something until I worked with Shane. I was kind of that belief. I had thick skin. I would have trouble losing all the fat. And frankly, it just came down to losing it, just committing to losing it. And I think that's something that like it does come from like first exposure. The first time you take yourself through a diet, you can really push the envelope, which like I did that in 2021 to get on stage, yes. And then when I coached myself, I mean, like to no one's surprise, like I had John Jewett helping me. Like he's like the king of conditioning. So of course I came in way too conditioned. I'm not even disappointed in that, because even then it still was like, this is a mile marker for me, like a level of conditioning I didn't know I could achieve. And like that is pretty rewarding to know that. And like that builds confidence throughout, like, next preps I go in, like, hey, I have the capability to do this. Don't really need to though for the division. Now in regards to muscularity, yeah, absolutely. I so like structurally, I think the challenges I kind of face, like my clavicles are pretty broad. I have good delts, like they're developed, whereas my hips are pretty narrow. And realistically, with a short torso, I mean, like this is going to pose problems in essentially finding that upper to lower balance. Especially because the tie-ins, like they're very low tie-ins. If you, for listeners who probably have heard you talk about this with other competitors, is like if you have very short tie-ins, like you don't necessarily need as much muscle. You get a lot of depth, a lot of projection. It comes with other challenges. So structurally, having long tie-ins, having smaller hips relative to my shoulders, also just being someone who like, yeah, I'm on TRT, but like realistically, like I haven't like, I don't know, pulled like the trigger on, doing any off season cycles. Like, in a way it's like, okay, like I'm going about it a little slower. So I'd say that definitely is a challenge in terms of building that lower body muscularity. But, really this last year with finishing school, I stayed lean. Like I stayed about 5 pounds away from stage weight for like a good amount of time. And I was very like, I was very back and forth on wanting to compete last year, but it was like I saw my physique and I'm like, it's just not going to be competitive. Like it's like I might do well and I might get lucky maybe at one show, but like I still need more muscle. And honestly, I was having a ton of fun just like doing what I'm doing on the business side, scaling that, really focusing on my clients, traveling. So I went through a build last year, and the primary focus was glute tie-ins, glute med. And I mean, I was able to put on 4 inches on my glutes with just TRT, which like to me, I very much was of the belief like I would need to have like Anavar or Primo in place in order to get that kind of growth. So realistically, maybe I still need that. Maybe I'm still on the smaller side. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll get a little leaner and then we'll decide.
So that's a good one. So lately, Ozempic's been thrown around the mix, and I don't know. I mean, it's a new thing. It's a new like a new weight loss kind of thing. I don't know if it's been studied well enough to say that it's effective. The biggest thing I'm seeing is the side effects. The cons outweigh the pros of it. What are your thoughts on fat burners, Clen, Ozempic? Should they just be something seasonal, or what should be seasonal just for like I say, fat burners are seasonal if you have a weight loss goal. They shouldn't be used year round. What are things? Do you think that all those should be something seasonal or something like like every cycle, or what would you say?
Yeah, no. So I think a simple way to answer this, T4, T3, this is one that we see it's very commonly prescribed to Gen Pop. And I mean, like we have good data to support that at normal doses, like HRT doses, this is one that even after being on it for a long period of time, the risk profile is pretty low, obviously, depending on the individual's health status. But that's one that I feel pretty comfortable putting in place whenever someone starts contest prep. It doesn't happen all the time. I have national level competitors who it's like, hey, let's just ride this out. Maybe that's a collaborative decision, but realistically, I'm very comfortable with that going in when someone goes into a fat loss phase on account of we see that the thyroid axis, like that feedback loop, is going to adapt very quickly. Like it's really unfair how quickly you're going to see down regulation. It's like 7 to 10 days. And it doesn't mean like, okay, it's going to go from 100% to 50 to 0. But in the case of contest prep, I'm like, it's just we're losing fat. Like we know it's gonna go down. We're gonna get too lean, like just from a health status standpoint. I'm okay with that one being put in place. Clenbuterol, I also I think like when we look at like the sister drug albuterol, so it has a shorter half-life. Clen is like 36-hour half-life. Albuterol is given all the time. Like just that's like one of the emergent drugs if someone's having an asthma attack, and I think that's one that like we just have to be like mindful of in terms of route of administration. You can get liquid clenbuterol or albuterol, and frankly, I'm very like hesitant to recommend those ever. The only cases I've seen where someone's had like negative health outcomes with that was through the liquid form. So I would say like in the case of clen, still need to be mindful of like the health score and like any comorbidities the individual's bringing to the table. I'd say generally that's one, even at low doses, it's going to be helpful in what we're doing. Um, Even like within the conversation of clen and T4, T3, do we need to have these in place in the off season? For most people, no. There are some people like I could see the argument to have them in. I have some clients that they come to me, they're prescribed T4, T3, so they're just on it year round. And whether they're actually subclinically hypothyroidism or their doctor just prescribed it prematurely, it's like, okay, fine. I'm okay with that. If your health is being managed from someone else, that's fine. Um, Let me see. When we talk about like other like big fat loss agents, Ozempic, this is one we're seeing a lot of use in our sport. And like, I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of clinics who are just kind of like putting it out there as like, hey, this is an option. Um, I'll share. Like, I have a client who we were going to end the fat loss phase like this week, and part of the reason why, like, she made good progress, relatively unenhanced. I think she had TRT in place. Like, it was just like very, very mild. But one of the issues she was running into is the food noise, and I mean, like, working with her over a year now, I'm like, she's very hardworking. She's doing all the things right to manage that food noise. But I actually posed the option to her. I'm like, hey, like, we're still about 10 pounds from where she wanted to end the fat loss phase at. And she was very willing to end it just on account of it really wasn't productive at this point. So I was like, what if we put this in place? Just for a remaining 6 weeks. I think she has a surgery coming up. So it's like, let's finish this off on a good note, a little bit closer to where you wanted to end. And she's someone like, I mean, she's very much like, hey, like, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Like, but in this case, she's like, yeah, that would be fantastic. And I mean, like, her being on it for a couple weeks now, we've been able to see like it's dramatically helped with the food noise. I don't think that we should just like be blanketly putting that in, because there are going to be some individuals who do have comorbidities that are not insignificant. But then also it's like the dosing around that. We have to understand that like the effects are going to vary based on BMI. So individuals who are a little bit heavier might be able to get away with the clinically effective dose, but realistically for our population, we're probably going to be fine using much less. But I predict that that's going to be something that is just like the next Anavar, the next Clen. It's just going to be a part of what girls use to get on stage. So I'm really interested, especially because you have semaglutide, you also have tirzepatide, retatrutide. So they're becoming more sophisticated, like these types of drugs, the GLP-1s.
Yeah. So one thing I always say is when you get into an off season, I feel like they need to come off everything. For you, I actually like when you're showing your updates and going like, I look like this. I'm just gonna say a number. I hope you don't take this wrong. Like, I'm 145. When do you feel like people should slowly get into like that off season? Like, how much weight do you think is like necessary? Is it person individual? Like, do you feel like people just need to get into an off season to like feel better hormonally, to like get their face fat back? What are some things that you would say they should not be on, or they could take while they're in off season, if they're trying to build, if they're, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, no, you're right on the money with that. And I mean, like, honestly, I I can say that, like, from my experience, I haven't been productive with building sitting at 130. Like, and that's just on TRT. So I don't know, if I was on Anavar, maybe I would, like, maybe that would be a productive build. But realistically, that body fat for me is 15% or less. Like, it's very low body fat. And I kind of look at it like that. Like, when we're looking at body fats, how productive of a time is this actually? And I think you need to have metrics in place to really quantify that. So there's the hormonal side that's like, if the individual isn't ovulating, if we're not seeing that, not just getting a period, but if they're not seeing that on lab work, they're not going to be as effective at building. Like, you need estrogen to be able to build that conversion that allows for building. It's needed. So it's like, when we have people who are maintaining super low body fats in the off season, I very much consider using anabolics in that place. I'm like, that's compensation, because you hormonally are not in a place where you can fully maximize being in a non-prep setting. Now, in terms of the actual, like, the I guess the approach to scale weight, I mean, there's many people that could argue that like 150 for me is way too heavy, and like she let herself go, and like I I I didn't like the body fat at 140, so like I'm right there with you. But like, realistically, I also know that like um, I've seen the most progress just committing to a certain amount of time, increasing training performance, and more specifically, seeing measurements go up while keeping a really tight eye on body fat. And like, yeah, like I got up to 152 at 5'4", and like that's pretty thick. Like, that's the heaviest I've ever been. But I'm telling you, like, it's so cool on this side of things on the way down, like going from 152 to now 139. I'm like, I never thought I would like have really diced abs at 139. Like, I never thought I would like be like be at this body fat at this weight. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if I like absolutes with this, because I think people can get really married to like 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds. And I think realistically, like, I've seen girls get 20, 25 pounds, but they've held their shape really well. And they've been productive in that space. So I would say, in the case that weight is going up to maybe that body fat percentage that's like 18, 20, 25%, I would just be really diligent that you are seeing training performance also improve, and that you have measurements to confirm that it's going on in the right areas. I think where people go wrong is they're not paying attention to the right metrics, and they're just looking at scale weight in isolation. They're like, well, this is what everyone does, I'm still within that range. But like, I've seen people 10 pounds, 15 pounds over stage weight, and they don't look like they're building muscle. Like, they're not being very productive. So, yeah, did I dodge that question correctly? What do you think?
No, I think you answered it pretty well. So going about training now, the biggest thing is, being exercise specific. So with your clients, what are some things that you see, if they can do proper form, if there's something they need to train? Because a lot of this thing now, I have an exercise science degree. I don't think that even with me having that I'm better than any of the coaches. I feel like you see a lot of the nuances, the whole training and all that. But how do you measure someone? Like, is it just someone needs that discipline? Someone needs to be, stick to a program? Do they need to change up certain things?
So I've found a lot of value in understanding positioning and building stability in these positions. So specifically, when we're talking about building the glutes, and the same rule of thumb applies to building the delts, or just building the body as it needs to be for bikini. The limiting factor that we're going to see is a lack of stability, like specifically pelvic stability. And that's probably going to be the bottleneck that prevents people from consistently being able to make progressions like specific to load, so weight lifted, or like it's going to be debilitating in that they're either going to injure themselves quite literally with like a herniated disc because they're loading structure, or the fact they're just going to have lower back pain and they're going to be like, I don't want to do this. I'm getting this neurological signal that's telling me that like I'm in pain, I'm not lifting the target muscle. So number one thing, having good pelvic stability. So being able to properly stack the rib cage over the pelvis and maintain that positioning while you're doing hinge patterns, squat patterns. I think in lieu of intensity, so like actually getting in, like by intensity, I mean like proximity to failure. I think, yeah, high volume does work, but only to a point. And I think that's where a lot of people, myself included, like they get really bored. They're like, how many sets of abductions do I need to do before my glute meads look like gnarly? And it's like, there's probably a better way to load this. But the fact that you're doing so much volume is now preventing you from reaching that proximity to failure. So, you follow my stuff. Like I'm very hands-on with clients. When it comes to training, I'm very specific. I think the thing that a lot of people they find challenging is that it sucks to suck at a skill. And when you think that you've been in the gym training 5 to 10 years consistently and you think you know it all, it's like to have someone be like, we're going to drop the weight. We're going to focus on positioning. Oh, you're still not doing it right. We're going to run it again. We're going to keep doing this until you learn this skill. It's, to me, it's not like worth, like I was that person who was like hip thrusting 3 times a week, like 400 pounds. And I'm like, my glutes, like they grew. Yeah. But I'm like, this can't be like the linear progression. It's just, it can't be like, oh, I need to do 5, I need to do 6, and I need to do sets of like 10 sets of like 20. Like that just can't be the way to do this. And it really wasn't until I was able to start working with my boyfriend, Jordan Junta. He's one of the owners of Prescript. So his forte is biomechanics. It is training principles. And he has helped me so much in just understanding the principles of biomechanics and like why, even though like I might not need quads and hamstrings and I actually don't want my core to thicken and I don't need all these back muscles, those principles still apply. And I mean, like, honestly, it's allowed me to just deliver a better coaching service to my clients because there isn't that ambiguity with like, oh, just train harder or get like, I can see and be like, oh, like you were not stable at the hip and that's causing you to do this. And that's why your lower back is hurting. Here, let's fix that, do this, this, and this. And for me, I think having someone hands-on to be able to, like in my case, like as the coach, being able to do that for clients, I think that's invaluable.
Yeah. And going off that actually was going to lead to my next question. So are there certain exercises you avoid? Because one thing that, especially in bikini is, getting that S curve where it's like, with that top, snatch waist, rounding of the glutes. What are rounding of your upper outer glutes? What are some things that you do to avoid, getting your waist thicker, blowing out your waist so you don't, or doing anything so you don't get too big? Because a lot of people will take that word like train hard or, work hard. They'll take it as like, I have to put on more weight. And then they'll think more weight equals more progression, more muscle. What are some ways that you go about training with you or in Jordan?
Yeah. Yeah. So the big focus is on, I guess, how do I want to explain this? The big focus is making sure that I'm lifting the load that I can handle from a technical standpoint. So in the case of like pelvic stability, like if you're not going to load anteriorly, like your abdomen, what's going to be loaded in a hinge pattern is going to be either structure or musculature on the back, so posterior. And if you're loading structure, the lumbar spine, you're going to injure yourself. Maybe not immediately, but you're going to keep repeatedly doing this because you're a bikini girl and you're doing RDLs like 8 times a week or something. So yeah, over time, it's going to start to create issues. Same thing with like if you're loading the musculature on the back. So what I like to do is as I'm going through my progressions, I like to really audit like how good am I right now at maintaining this position? Would it be beneficial to continue to progress load, so the weight itself? Or am I struggling with the position so much that instead using a tempo would actually serve me better because just increasing load, I'm probably going to lose positioning anyway. So Jordan has, and then like, I mean, like, we don't really like to use the word coach because it's not like in the like colloquial sense of like, oh, I send him a check-in. It's like, we just have really deep conversations around these things. He's extremely good at what he does. And he trains, like we train together, and he also like does a very similar split. So within that, like he is looking at how I'm moving. He's asking me questions and not just like giving me the answers, but like really probing, like, how did this feel? What did you feel? And then I think like developing that kind of awareness has really allowed me to make better decisions. But even then, like I'll kind of justify it to him. I'll be like, this is why I want to do this this is why I want to make this pivot in the first movement of my workout. What do you think? Does that make sense, or is that dumb? And he's like, no, that's spot on. Or he'll challenge it and be like, okay, expand on that, justify this, this, and this. So I think like being able to have really an understanding and intention behind why you're doing everything has helped a ton. But with clients specifically, I know you had asked about like waist thickening. I I might be the only pro who doesn't wear a waist trainer. I don't do that because I frankly like I think it's a little silly when we're talking about needing to have pelvic positioning. And in the case of like holding an isometric, it's like, okay, like if you're doing an RDL, like we need to have some degree of core control, but it's not like we're just bearing down. It's not like we're just like doing this like 1 minute isometric. And if we're holding the right positioning, we really shouldn't see a lot of waist expansion. But I do find like the waist trainers, I feel like a lot of people, they kind of rely on them almost like a belt, like a weightlifting belt, to offer that additional support. But I think in reality, it's like, hey, we're not lifting that heavy. Like we're not Olympic weightlifters. We're not power lifters. Like we can lift heavy, and even in the off season, yes. But realistically, that skill of pelvic stability and core bracing kind of needs to progress as we progress weights. Things that I avoid: biceps, triceps, like I don't train them. I might get some stimulation through them through back, like I mean, because I'll train my lats and I have a pretty good pull day. I don't train quads directly. I don't train hamstrings. And that's largely because for my lower days, I'm doing hinging and squat patterns. Like I'm doing a split squat that's biased towards the glutes. There's going to be some quad recruitment. So, I mean, like me having leg extensions, like I for not training like quads, I do get stimulation from it. So I kind of want to like preserve that runway as much as I can. Same thing with hamstrings. It's like the more those develop, the more glute we're going to need to develop, because realistically we might be a little imbalanced if it's then too like defined in our back pose. So yeah, bikini training, it's glutes, it's delts. I don't train chest. Like, I mean, like some people, they want these in their program, and I'm like, for enjoyment, okay. But for like the bikini build, unless like you are struggling, let's say in a sense, like you need to have these accessory movements in there because structurally, or I guess from a stability function standpoint, there truly is a deficit. Just from a hypertrophy standpoint, we actually don't want those muscles developed, because then it throws off the ratios of the muscles that we do want developed.
Yeah. So that's a good, and I really like that whole take on it. So what are things that, you know, and I got into liking bikini because it was very popular division, and that was something that I really found like people like the physique and the popular physique, and people ask why you a guy like it, because it's like I wanted to stop and I wanted to help people get better. I wanted to prevent and mitigate risk, prevent injuries. Because when I initially was in my exercise science program, I was trying to go into the physical therapy school at Virginia Commonwealth University. My thing was, you know, primary prevention, you know, stop something from getting worse, you know, and not only help someone in the event of an injury, but prevent an injury. So what are some ways that we can mitigate risks and side effects in our sport and help keep the longevity and health in the sport? Because a lot of times like someone tears something and that they call it a career after that. So what are some ways that do you do, like watch their videos, or do you like check on them every 2 days or once a week? What are some ways that you make sure just hormonally and physically and mentally every in athletes in check?
That's a great question. On the training side, so I do have eyes on their video, and like I have clients send anywhere from 3 to 5 videos a week. And like I have some strong girls on my roster, and like some of them I'm just very direct. I'm like, yo, you keep lifting like this, like you're going to be out for 6 months, and you might be looking at a potential surgery, or at least a span of time rehabbing this. So I'm just very clear. If someone's form is bad and actually putting them at risk, I tell them, I'm like, drop the weight. Like you can't you can't lift this weight with good form. So like we need to drop it. Like that's not going to serve you. I know you might like lifting it, but like that's not helpful. It's not conducive with what we're doing hormonally. Yeah, I mean, like lab work is definitely something that like I do emphasize on. But I would say like it's very specific in terms of timing and what labs we're pulling to that individual. But I don't really struggle with getting clients to get lab work done. I'm just very clear about like, hey, this would help us make decisions. If you do want to use PEDs down the road, this is going to give us the information that you need to use. So that's kind of like the first buy-in that I need to see from a client is like, and I'm thinking of a specific client, like she wants to use PEDs. She's not a competitor, very inconsistent on execution. And I'm like, cool, let's get labs done. Of course, it takes her 8 months to get labs done. I'm like, yeah, like you're not going to use PEDs. Like you couldn't even like string together the ability to like put the lab work as like a priority in your schedule. Like it's not enough
Can
for
I say
me.
something about that?
Yeah.
Like I always want to know someone's lab work. So if I know that they have a condition that I'm aware of it and so that they're aware of it, so that I know that if they get on anything, if they decide to go with any training program, that these are some markers until that's, fixed, or like until you go and check that out, then we'll continue. I always wanted to make sure that they're safe. And that's something that I always implement. Um, we're going to continue with this, but what's something that someone had a condition, you're like, I don't think I can go with you. I don't think I can go with this any further. Or did you ever have that situation before?
Yeah, I've had two clients with pituitary adenomas who were very insistent. They wanted to use GH and TRT and anabolics. And it was weird because it happened in the span of like 3 months of each other. So they had tumors that couldn't be diagnosed whether they were benign or not. One of them, I mean, they were both small enough to where it was, and like both girls were very young, but it was something I'm like, you're literally the candidate for the person who can't use GH. And like one of them was like, I think I'm going to use it anyway. And I'm like, I can't work with you. Like, this is such a liability, dude. Are you fucking kidding me? And like, also, do you understand? Do you want to like Google what an adenoma is? Like, I don't think you understand this. Um, the other one was like very receptive. I was like, we need to be careful, not just about this, but she was on TRT. And I'm like, we probably need to remove this. This is probably something you need to work with an endocrinologist on, like exclusively. And I'd be very candid with them about like anything you've taken in the past. But you are past what I can handle. And like, I don't feel comfortable managing your care. Let me see. I know, yeah, on the male side, the blood pressure is something that like I I struggle with because I can manage it in some ways and I have a lot of experience in really the process of managing hypertension and lowering it, but then also even the diagnostics that we need to look at. And like I tend to be more, I mean, of an alarmist when it comes to hypertension, especially for men who are using gear. So I'm like, you have a PPO, like get on the phone with a cardiologist, get an echo. Like that's where we're starting. And like it's not just going to be this imaging. It's probably going to be more after this because like that's one I'm like you might not realize, but like we're talking about like years off your life that like we're getting that signal now. Like it's obvious that this will affect you and like best case scenario is it's just you're uncomfortable and like maybe this is something that you need to support with medication, but very realistically for some of these cases that go untreated that individuals will be on high doses of anabolics, and I'm specifically talking about men here, you're talking about individuals with systolics in the 180s who are just walking around blasting gear, and I'm like, you could have a stroke and be a vegetable. That's the side of this that like is your cardiologist isn't going to tell you, but like that is like the potential risk of just living here. So it's not a matter of like, do you want to get off drugs? It's like you're just running out the clock. So there's been a few cases on that end where I've been like, hey, I want to help you, but like I can't like play a role in talking to you about these anabolics because realistically like they're contributing to a health outcome that I'm not comfortable with.
And so, mental aspect about going about things. Do you think that someone's mentally ready for any prep, or do you feel that um, when you do your questionnaire, when someone signs up for you, do you have like see where they are at and see if they're like mentally ready for it and like they understand what they're getting into?
Do you mean with first time competitors or with individuals who've competed before?
Both, both first time and competitors who have competed before.
With first time competitors, I like individuals who are interested in the sport. I counter offer. I'm like, hey, let's start a fat loss phase and let's get a really good sense of what your execution's like. Um, for both competitors, non competitors, I always build in a diet break somewhere between week 6 to week 10. And that's kind of the point that, like, with the first time competitor, I'm like, this is really going to tell me, like, what we've done thus far and whether or not this individual is prepared in terms of the skill of dieting to see this out and really turn this into a prep. For other competitors or people who have competed before and they just come to me, they're just like, I just want to get on stage. Um, there is this, like, I would say, like, dating process that like happens in the first month of working with someone, which I don't know. I'm very comfortable telling someone like, hey, like you are doing the bare minimum and you might say that you want to compete, but your actions don't really align with that. Um, if you want to keep like working towards losing fat, we can do that. But I do have kind of like limits that I would put on like the amount of time I want someone to spend like in a fat loss phase or in a prep. So it's not going to be just this like endless thing that like, oh, you diet for 3 months and that turns into a competition prep. Not typically, at least. But yeah, I think it largely, it just comes down to dialogue. And like I can typically tell if someone like has what it takes like very very quickly into working with them, in terms of the conditioning side and like even their reaction to the kind of response that they're getting. I see good progress with clients. Like it doesn't take much. Like it doesn't. I don't run into a lot of puzzling clients who just can't lose weight. So with that, there very much is like this consideration. If a client is like really struggling to see, let's say, a pound off each week, that would be an indication that like, okay, like you're struggling in week 1 or week 2. We probably need to spend more time developing this skill, rather than just like picking a show and then just out the gate committing to it.
Yeah. And so with this new fit model division, do you feel like it's going to be more safer for girls, to just start out with, and maybe they wouldn't have to be taking anything? Has anyone has anyone in fit model yet who are just in the amateurs been on any PEDs or anything at all? Because I'm just thinking this is the entry level division now, and I think that starting out, it's like something people can go into, and then if they like it, then they will develop and obviously outgrow it and to go into bikini. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the whole fit model thing? And I remembered asking you, do you think that it's just going to be just the same as bikini or more or less?
So I've had consultations with clients who are coached by others and who are on a lot of drugs for fit model, which is like very sad.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
um, yeah, like a lot of drugs. And like I've just straight up been like, I don't, you're an amateur competitor. Like I don't understand. Like this is a cycle that even at a bikini pro level, I would discourage. Um, so I don't think it's going to be natural. I think there's a specific look, and I think drugs are going to be used to achieve that look. But I think that there are safeguards in place to hopefully discourage the overdevelopment in terms of muscularity. But that's the issue, is like even like in this instance what I'm referring to is like the girl had a shitload of primo and anabar and like she was like 16 weeks out, and I was just like, I don't understand. Like she's like, well, I'm not big enough for bikini, and I'm like, I don't understand why you have all these compounds in place and you're getting ready to do fit model, and like the what you're just going to have this all the way through like for 4 months, and then what from there if you do a national show, because like realistically that's probably the plan from here on in. um yeah, like so I I think drugs are going to probably be abused just given the fact that like we're in a non-tested organization.
Yeah.
My hope is that certain things are judged harshly. So like in the case of someone being too conditioned or in the case of being a little too developed, I'm hoping that the judging criteria will be upheld. I think we're going to see kind of like with wellness how that plays out in the first year, and like, especially at the pro level. And any of the girls who've turned fit model pro or who've like done well, I'm not talking about them. So I mean, like I have not had interactions with them, and like frankly, I like I wouldn't share someone's cycle. I'm not going to dox them, but it was surprising to hear that one instance, and then like just knowing realistically, like people are going to do whatever it takes to win. So it's like that's a bummer. But at the same time, like I mean, that is the hope, is that it's a preserved division that doesn't get out of hand. But ultimately, I think we'll see.
I mean, everything's just going to keep evolving. And, we saw how, back in early bikini, it kind of looked like Victoria's Secret model, and how now it kind of looks more like this athletic, I'd say like 2010 kind of figure, but I can't imagine any of these girls doing a lat spread. I don't think it has like almost like the physique like figure, but I don't see them, doing a front lat at all, or like any of the top girls. I don't see like a Laura Lee, I don't see like a Vanya doing that at all. But I'm hoping for this division. It's just something that people can try out, and maybe we'll just see how it goes. I mean, we're gonna have the first obviously pro qualifier at Junior USA's this year, and then obviously with USA's, North Americans, nationals, and I'm hoping that maybe that it would not be as much worse as some other divisions, and people will maybe like it. And I think people, when they see that physique and what's being awarded and what's not being allowed, they'll go for it. And I actually want people to compete more, because we've seen in the past couple of years where numbers are down, because it's so crazy to go and say I turned pro at 2019 USA's, I was the overall winner. Like, oh, that physique couldn't probably win in today's era. Like, I would be dead last if I did any national show now. It's totally wild to see how all these divisions have evolved. But I think that, there's a reason I believe that the Arnold only had bikini wellness and fitness, because I just think that's the direction where things are headed to. Because I don't think, and listen, I'm not trying to say what's too much, what's not too much. I'm not a judge, but I feel like a lot of girls kind of want that more realistic physique. They're not trying to have massive physique. So it's kind of like, if those divisions kind of want people to be attracted to those categories, they're going to have to do something different, maybe change the criteria, like more than they have in the past, and go, okay, like this is bikini, that's figure, this is physique, this is physique, this is bodybuilding. There's just going to have to be that fine line and like specialization on the judging aspect. And I did talk to Jamie about this. Like, I feel like now more than ever, with so many divisions, with 7 in on the female side, they're going to have to be specialized to, like, because for instance, if they had a men's open show and then they had bikini go up, so after the men's open guys get off, they're going to see bikini, and what are they going to go with? They're going to go with the most muscular girl. So it's kind of be like, you have to have that right, keeping that criteria in check. We see overseas shows, they're conditioned, they're hard, they get here to the Olympia, they're like C is 16. So I definitely think that there's going to have to be like very strict, and having to put their foot down and say, this is our standard, this is what we really want to look for. And you're going past, like, I don't see fit model overtaking bikini, because when you say that there's a limit on how much muscle is allowed, it can't overtake. I still think bikini is going to still be popular, the most popular female division, and we'll see how it goes from there. But Cory, I really appreciate you coming on. And when I listen to you talk, it's like, if there was an audiobook, I would listen to it. Like,
Thank you.
You would, if it was I was like, you have a great voice. I enjoy listening to you, and I've learned so much from you, and I appreciate everything you do. And you're a godsend in our industry. And I wanted to share your page and where people can find you at.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I will be launching something here in the next month or two, probably 2 months. I am working on a comprehensive guide to lab work. And let me tell you, this is going to be dense. It's going to be really all encompassing, and it's not to serve in place of medical advice or anything like that. But I think exactly what we've discussed, offline too, is like, there is a huge need to understand the risk and the health concerns. And I think when it comes to labs right now, it's like very in vogue to be like, well, my coach, he got labs done, or he gets labs done, so, it's good. But really past that, it's like, okay, but what is the analysis? And do they have a very clear sense of really understanding, like, when these labs were taken? Are there specific lab markers that are being used to inform decision making and really intervention. So I'll be launching that here soon, but that is intended for coaches, athletes, anyone who just wants to feel like they are more so aware of the importance of these things, reference ranges, values behind, like, I mean, like if something is too high, what that could possibly indicate. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for having me on. All of my platforms are Cory_fit, as you guys can see. So CORY_FIT. Got my own podcast if you're interested in listening to that as well. But thank you. This has been great.
Anybody, any sponsors, any shout outs?
Who are my sponsors again? I mean, like I'm with Toxic. Yeah, I'm with Toxic. So I mean, like, Eat a Suit from Toxic, Cory Fit, Amino
Everybody
Asylum.
use code CoryFit. Everybody use code CoryFit. They make awesome suits.
They do. They really do. Amino Asylum. Yes, same code Cory Fit. So whatever you need, your melanotan, your backwater, your or they also do all the GLP-1s too. So just putting that out there.
Go ahead. I was actually going to share your YouTube as well.
Oh yeah, no, I did not touch on that. Yes, YouTube, 4 solo episodes, 2 guest episodes, 2 medium, easier to digest, I don't know, forms, but a lot of podcasts every single month. I have guests on talking about all sorts of things. But yeah, if you're interested in that long form, I've got a lot on there related to PEDs. And if you want even more information on the PED side of things, I do have a Patreon where you can ask questions and I will just, like, it's like sticking a quarter in. I'll just go off for an hour or 10-15 minutes talking about your specific instance. So if you're interested in that Patreon, it's CORY_FIT. I do also do coaching as well and one-time consultation. So like you heard here, a lot of coaches will actually join with their athlete, and it's something that it's then like very collaborative, and it's more of like this interdisciplinary I don't know, care team. So if that's something, if you're happy with your coach, don't jump ship. Let them know. Be like, hey, if they don't do the lab work, if they don't do the PED type thing, I can assist with that, or at least give my 2 cents so you make better decisions around this.